Today in the shop we have Kelvin's 4AGZE Supercharger E91. We're about to lift out the engine and do some intake mods to the intake manifold. What we're about to do is lift out the engine, color changing the supercharger stock manifold. So we're bypassing all the original supercharger piping. We could be running this setup. So right now we're just lifting out the engine and about to pull down then so that I can see a lot better behind there, because honestly you don't got much space in these vehicles. So we can just lift it out so I can see exactly what's going on behind the engine then and work from there. So just draining the coolant and about to take out the radiator, take off the harness off of the engine. Originally I didn't start the video before pulling down because I wasn't sure that I was going to make a video, but I said what the heck, why not? So I guess when they go back up then they could be able to show full completion of the job and the process of taking off the manifold, switching over, etc. So everything on board, all the harness on plug, exhaust off, everything on done so that it could lift up and lift out now. So we can start the process of taking off the intake and the manifold, etc. on both in the supercharger and see where we have to go. This monstrosity right here now, the supercharger that at the back of the engine. Toyota decided they're gonna make it as complicated and as compact as possible. So the air would come in here, go down through here like a throttle body, down through the back of the supercharger, and then come out the supercharger through the top, and then go back into the front of this here. So the throttle body is actually on the supercharger itself. The throttle body is not on the intake manifold. So tomorrow's job is pulling down the supercharger and taking off the intake manifold and see what we have to fabricate and alter to get the intake manifold to fit onto the vehicle now.
Mine is simple that off. Itu dia ribut semua.
Here now is the reason why the supercharger doesn't fit back on, or the manifold cannot just interchange with the engine, because the supercharger will butt the intake manifold. So at first the outlet pipe was resting on the intake manifold. So what we'll do is remove the outlet pipe or the supercharger and see how far now it can get up before the outlet pipe connected. So what I'm going to have to do is drop the supercharger about an inch, 2 inches or so to clear the bottom of the intake manifold. So doing that is going to be either one or two things: either moving the bracket that the supercharger bolts on, or making a bracket now and bolting it to the block and slotting the bracket slightly lower, which I rather not do, because the tension now would be in a different position if it was to slot the bracket. And cut the bracket where the supercharger bolts on and play it there so that it could basically lower only that part the supercharger bolts onto, and I would be able to lower the supercharger from there, then I still keep the tension in the original position. Right, so what you're figuring here to do here now is to cut this off as flush and as straight as possible. Plate it, steel plate, and extend the steel plate about 2 inches down, and then just drop this whole part, front part of the bracket in about 2 inches down, so that the supercharger will actually sit lower here and still allow the original position of the tensioner and bracket. Alright, so what you're going to do here now is try to line up the bracket itself with the plate in between it to make sure exactly where you're going to weld on the outside plate. So I gotta see if my logic here gonna work now. What you're gonna do is line up the bracket in between the plate in between the bracket so that I can see where exactly I have to weld on the welded bracket onto the plate, so that once that lines up there, everything on this side here flush. All we need to do then is just, after it's welded onto the plate, bring down the bracket in the same exact line that is welded over there, if it's still in that position then. So basically be using the line where it cut here and the line where you have on this plate here then to line back up with this here. So hopefully it should be one true straight line then. That it shouldn't be twisted too much one side, too much the other side. So there's it roughly tapped up in position. So just test fit now and see if it actually line up in the same correct position, just lower, so if the manifold would go on. Alright, so I'm gonna make some changes because the supercharger usually falls into this recess behind here. What I'm gonna do is cut out a piece of this and then cut off the edges here too, because I realize that the bracket on the supercharger actually overhangs flush with the other. So I got to cut off the lip and then cut a slot around there. So right, so yeah, another roadblock now. It seems that the bracket now would be in the way of the housing of the supercharger. So my best bet right now may be to reinforce the bottom of the bracket that I had dropped and altered and brace it to the bottom of the original bracket. That way that I could cut away from all around the bottom of the supercharger, so that I would be able to get some clearance there. Cause I cut maybe at least maybe a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch back to get some clearance so that it goes up close to the manifold, but that still isn't enough because I would really like the supercharger to be a little bit further under the intake manifold. And as you can see, that it's still a good ways off. So I would really like that bolt. Actually, I would really like for me to have to cut that bolt to get under the intake manifold. That would make it easier so that I could just use this one bolt over here, then I build a bracket to connect to the intake manifold. At this point here, most likely gonna go to alter also, so I may go end up cutting this, either turning it slight or welding a piece of aluminum in the cooler piping to the top right to turn it where you want. But the main focus right now, is getting superchargers slightly or a little deeper up under the intake manifold as possible. So at first we had it about maybe about an inch off the manifold. So now I got it like it could go on but upon the intake. Right, so this is the bracket look like now. The drip up underneath look like with a big, maybe 1/2 inch thick plate welded to support the bottom of the bracket. So when I finish everything fitting how I want, I will clean up everything, reinforce it a little more and polish it up, make it look pretty. But fitment is the key for no way would say. Next goal is to build a bracket to reinforce the top of this to the intake manifold after everything goes up. So you gotta think about design. Drop a little template. Basically, put it on cross. Taper it along the side of the manifold. bend this area so that this area will fold over here then, and then the rest of the valve alongside the manifold. That should be more than enough reinforcement at the top to just hold it. Take off your manifold and weld this here in the exact position that you just screwed. That way that when you come and rest back on the manifold, it should in theory come back in line almost perfect with the compressor hose. Oh, let me see over here right now. Alright, you don't have to make no adjustments or anything. Alright, so the basic parts and brackets etc. on. What we're gonna do is pull down everything now, reinforce the bottom bracket and clean it up. May even put a little paint on it if we find some. The manifold, wrung off the edges, clean up there, reinforce this part that has slash, weld that up. Majority of things back on, coolant hoses etc. on, manifold bolt up, water pipe underneath bolt on. So just a bracket, this is a finalized bracket here now with everything done, reinforce, weld up, and just put a little paint on it so it don't rust out. That's the underneath that was open up, so the solid piece of plate I block off the side of it on both ends and grind down the top of it then so the supercharger don't rub away on it. Leave that little space ain't gonna be a big issue or strengthening point because the two ends here so barely holding anything to begin with. So it's just about it on now, and put on the supercharger and line it up and see how everything turning out looking. Last thing, if you got adjust now, then this here, so you're gonna cut this and turn it, clock it so that will go back on now.